Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best stand movie related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, gather around as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news, a little bit of television, all sorts of good things. And happy Monday, everybody. Let's have a triumphant week ahead of us, filled with victory and glory. And speaking of victory and glory, the one and the only, no, he is not naked today. It's one Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, how you doing today, sir?
Yeah, I figured I'd go for like the Sonny Crockett Miami Vice Peach t-shirt. Now I just need some like a linen blazer and no socks with my shoes. I'll be rocking it.
And you have to understand the context here of how this works. So I'm sitting here, and what happens is Rob was off just doing his final prep, and I've got a laptop beside me. Now, this laptop is where Rob is coming in from, right? So I'm sitting here looking at my computer, getting the show all set, and Rob comes into frame, and I only catch him out of the corner of my eye. And just for a split second out of the corner of my eye, I thought he was doing the show today topless. It's like, wow, we're gonna raise some money today. We're going to get them dollar bills today. Hey, listen, guys, thanks for being here. Listen, we do have a number of things to talk about here today. Here's how today's show is going to go. We're going to start by talking about a number of predetermined subjects and topics that we're going to talk about. That's the first half of the show. Second half of the show, we're going to be taking your live comments and questions. If you've got a live comment or question you want to make, simply use the tip link that's in the top of the description of this video. You can just click on it there, or simply enter it in manually, streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. You'll be getting your comment or question on the show if it's within reason. And of course, you'll be supporting the channel at the same time. I also want to remind you guys that if you have not done so already, take a second and click on that subscribe button. Become a subscriber to the John Campea YouTube channel, keeping you up to date on all the stuff that we've got going on here. And listen, guys, before we get into the main topics that we have selected out, there is one thing off the top that I want to talk about here today, and that is this. One of the films that I've really been looking forward to this year, mostly just because of who's involved in it, Ryan Reynolds, but then the first trailer came out a little while ago for Free Guy, and I really dug that trailer. Well, a brand new trailer for Free Guy has just come out, giving us a completely different perspective on the movie. And first, about the trailer itself, I thought the trailer was great. I thought there's a lot of great funny lines. I thought it represented the movie well. I think it just looks really good. And you know, we always say around here, the job of a trailer is to take your excitement level wherever it is and just bump it up a few notches. I've already been pretty enthusiastic about this movie. I've already been pretty excited about it. But I gotta say, this new trailer has done its job. It has amped up my excitement level for it. I thought it looked great. And it does philosophically exactly what a first trailer to a second trailer should do. You know, the first trailer should tease you, should give you just a little taste of what this thing is, kind of get your, get awareness raised up, get you a little bit excited for it. And then the second trailer should come out and then give you more context. Okay, so here's basically now what this movie's about. And Rob, I would say that this trailer for Free Guy gave us a completely different perspective of this movie than the first one did. Because the first one, you and I talked about this, the first one gives the impression that this is all a movie and a story that takes place within a video game, which is fine. This one says, actually, there's a whole different dimension to it. The Killing Eve girl, who I feel terrible that I'm forgetting her name, but she's awesome in Killing Eve. The lead girl, what's her name?
Jodie Comer,
something like that, yeah. But she's amazing in Killing Eve. So I've been looking forward to seeing this. She's actually a player outside the game, while Ryan Reynolds is kind of in the game. It's a little reminiscent, Rob. This trailer felt a little bit more reminiscent of reminiscent. That's the word for the day. Reminiscent. It's a little more like Wreck-It Ralph a bit than, say, the first one was. It also feels a little bit like that new Amazon show called, was it Download? Or the one with I think it's Upload. With Amel. Upload, yeah, with Amel that stars in that. So it feels a little bit like that too, but It gives us a whole different perspective. Feels like a completely different movie now. Now we get a sense of who her character is. We have more of a definitive sense of who Ryan Reynolds' character is. We now get a sense of what is Taika Waititi doing in this movie. So it was philosophically a really well-structured trailer. I liked what I saw. Rob, you had a chance to check it out this morning. What did you think about this new trailer for Free Guy?
I like you, a totally different perspective. I am excited about it because, you know, it touches on the same kind of concepts that, say, The Truman Show touched on, where, you know, Jim Carrey's character Truman doesn't know he's in a reality TV show, and people are watching him, and there's it's actually a great, with Free Guy, it's a great science fiction concept in that Ryan Reynolds' character is, you know, he's an AI, he's a free roaming AI that doesn't know what he is, and there's questions of existentialism, and I mean, you could go in that direction, but it's also just like, it's got a kick-ass action component. It's got, like, we see, he has a good friend. There's romance. I mean, it went from being one concept movie for me to being something that's really multidimensional. I'm like, I want to see what they do with this. I mean, there's even a sense that the world is ending. So he's got this there's an apocalyptic angle to this movie too. And I was very surprised. It looks really, really good, at least to me. I mean, you know, maybe you feel the same way. It looked great. I can't wait.
I did think it looked great. Although let me throw something out here. In today's world of the complete obsession with shared cinematic universes, we're going to get to the end of this movie where this AI, in the form of Ryan Reynolds, who has just had his existence threatened by these human users, he says, you know what? Guy's too generic of a name. I want a new name. And girl from Killing Eve says, what's your name? And he says, I want something unique. I know. Call me Cyberdyne. Bum, bum, bum. It's a shared cinematic. This is the beginning of Terminator. This is the beginning of Terminator. I am telling you right now, take it to the bank. But no, I think it looks great. I thought it was a lot of fun. Question is for you guys. Have you had a chance to watch this new trailer for Free Guy? And you know what? Should probably also mention here, Rob, one other thing that is worth mentioning, especially when you consider what the big topic today it is, what we're going to discuss, which is, it still says in the trailer and in the description of its YouTube, you know, when they put it up on YouTube, in the description of it, it still says coming December 11th. Still there. Now, I have a feeling this trailer was made and completed and had all of its data put into it prior to the big news that we're going to be talking about a little bit later. So just a quick yes or no, Rob. I'm going with no. Do you think Free Guy, despite the fact that it says it in the trailer, is actually going to be coming out on December 11th?
No.
You know, and I'll say now, but I think there's a better chance than you might think. I'm still saying no, but I think there's a better chance than you might think.
Well,
but
you know, we were talking about on Friday, that the release of Billie Eilish's video for No Time to Die means the movie's going to stick to its November date.
Well, what we said was,
within 24 hours.
Within an hour. What we said was, I think, you know, you and I both said, well, you know, Bond could still move, but I think that they released this video today tells us that they at least haven't decided to move it yet. Right. 1 hour later. 1 hour later. Anyway, guys, question is for Free Guy. If you had a chance to see the trailer, if so, what did you think of it? I thought it was a really fun trailer. Jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's get into our main subjects today. And how do we select our main subjects here on the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. You see, you guys come up with them by going anytime 24/7. When you come up or you come across a big story that you think we should make a main topic, go on over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you get there, you're going to see a form. Fill it out with your big news item. It's totally free. Hit submit. And then maybe, just maybe, you might see your submission featured as a main topic here on the John Campea Show. With that down, let's get into main topic number 1. And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by Danny. And Danny writes, so With the news of Electro coming back in Spider-Man 3 and speculation of Maguire and Garfield possibly returning too. Now remember, that Maguire-Garfield thing is all pure speculation. Nobody's actually saying that's happening. Just keep that in mind. What are the chances we see new iterations of Spider-Man we haven't seen before in this film pop up? Other Peter Parkers perhaps, or even Miles or Noir Spider-Man. If it does well, could Sony end up spinning off such characters into their own standalone films? What do you think? All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yes, when the movie fan world got shocked the other day, like totally and utterly shocked the other day, with news of Electro, Jamie Foxx coming back as Electro. How big of a role? How small of a role? What will the nature of that role be? Will it be the exact same as Electro as before? There's still a lot of questions in the air, but still, the fact that they announced that they were bringing him back, it has thrown open the floodgates of the possibilities of what could this mean? What else could they do? Could they actually bring back Andrew Garfield? Could they actually bring back Tobey Maguire? And now that has spun into even more. Well, could they bring in more iterations of Spider-Man? And you're not the first person to ask this, Danny. I mean, I've seen a lot of different movie websites writing articles about where else could Sony go? Could they bring in live action versions of the Spider-Man variants we got in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse? Could we have 4 or 5 Peter Parkers from alternate dimensions? Could those Peter Parkers get their own Spider-Man movies? Peter Parker number 1, Peter Parker number 2. Could we get Ben Reilly, Rob? Could Ben Reilly show up? That's the one Spider-Man iteration. I know not a lot of people like the clone stuff, but I gotta tell you, I like the Ben Reilly story. I don't know why, but that's a subject for another day. I would say there are 2 things to keep in mind right now. Thing number 1 is this, is that with Jamie Foxx coming back as Electro, and hell, if you want to go by extension, Ben Affleck coming back as Batman, we are living in an era right now where literally all bets are off. Like nothing that would be the normal rules apply right now. And that's not just because of the pandemic. I mean, there's other things. So right now, all the rules are out the window. I would say this though, Rob. I doubt that we're going to see Sony at least go so far as to create multiple Peter Parkers and then have those variant Peter Parkers go on to have their own Spider-Man franchises. At least on the movie screen, I doubt we're going to see that. And the reason, Rob, that I doubt that is because what it does is it dilutes their fan base. It dilutes their IP. Right? There's only so much you can do. You still have to have, in a Wild West experimental whatever, you still have to have some sense of protection for your IP. And you don't want to dilute it too much, and you don't want to have it splintered off too much. And so while I do think, look, I think we're going to get Spider-Woman. We're going to get, I think at some point, we're going to continue. We're obviously going to get another Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And there's different ways to do iterations, but like, as far as multiple Peter Parkers with their own spin-off things, I think for movie screens and from a business point of view, I don't think that would work. And it would have a small audience, but I think for a lot of the movie-going audiences just be, what the hell's going on? So I don't think they'll go that far. But Rob, we are living in a world where almost anything goes. Do you think we could see things go that far in the immediate future?
Well, I think that there's the possibility of going too far. It seems to be all the rage with multiple Batmans coming back, and they've already done Into the Spider-Verse, and they did it very well. I mean, Hollywood, they like to copy things that are proven formulas. But I mean, I could see it. Look at the picture that you have up, the thumbnail that you have up right now. That's pretty dope. I mean, I would watch that. I'm like, I look at that picture and I'm like, did Ray make that? That's a really cool picture. I'm like, I would watch that movie if that was, and it would be fun to see. So I just think though that this kind of gimmicky thing might overshadow the whole film itself. But then again, the animated Into the Spider-Verse was so good that if the movie was good and the script was good, it might transcend the gimmick nature of it all. And that's the only thing that I worry about with all these multiverse. You've got to still have a great story. And at the end of the day, I need to have a great story about great characters, and there's got to be, you have to take me on a journey where I've learned something, and I just hope that the gimmick doesn't overshadow the movies themselves. Because if they have a good reason to put all these characters together and they work well together, like they did in Into the Spider-Verse, we could get something really special. But if not, it could collapse under its own weight.
I think your example of Into the Spider-Verse is apt because, like, one of the things that they did very intentionally was that when you look at Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, what didn't they do? They didn't make it about all these other Universal Spider-Man variants, right? It was very much, and even with Peter being in there, I mean, you could make an argument that it was a movie about Miles and Peter. You could also just make an argument it was really about Miles. But when they did bring in these alternate variations from different universes, one of the interesting things was, even though it was just animated, what they were very purposeful in doing was making sure there was only one Miles, there was only one Peter, there was only one, I can't remember what the anime girl's name was, Penny. There was only one Penny Parker, there was only one Noir, there was only one Spider-Ham. They while it was a multiverse thing, it was still very, very unique and different characters. And I think we already see Sony doing that in live action a little bit, right? Because we've got the fact that they're introducing Spider-Woman. We've heard about Madam Web. We've heard about Silk. So maybe with like very definitively different, unique characters within that Spider-Verse genre, if you will, almost like it's a genre unto itself. But again, that far, I think you're right, Rob. I think once you get into, okay, we're going to have 5 Peter Parkers, that gets a little bit gimmicky. I think you're right. And I don't know that you can go that far.
Yeah. And also, there's not a lot of differential between them. It's not like they have different costumes. They're all very similar looking. So it's going to, what was interesting about Into the Spider-Verse is Peter Parker was much older. Miles Morales and Peter Parker were not like high school chums. They were far apart in age. So that really differentiated the characters and gave us something new and unique. But if you have 3 Spider-Men that are pretty similar, how do you make that interesting? I don't know.
It will be interesting, but hey, I mean, there's no denying there would be a lot of initial excitement if they did it. But again, this is one of those concepts to me that feels like it would be great for a 10-minute YouTube video, right? Not necessarily for a full-fledged movie, but let's just call it, we're living in an age where you can't say it's out of the realm of possibility.
Nope.
It's not. I don't think it'll happen, but it is not outside of the realm of possibility. Question is, guys, what do you think about that? Do you think Sony at this point could have like multiple Peter Parkers, multiple whatever, and then have them all doing their own movies at the same time? Is that something the market could hold? Maybe yes, maybe no. Jump down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to our second and main topic today, shall we? And our second and main topic today gets submitted to us by our friend James. And James writes, well, a double whammy. Just hours after your Friday show, No Time to Die was delayed till next April. Then, this weekend, as a result, according to Variety, Cineworld has decided to close all their Regal cinemas in the US, UK, and Ireland this week. This is a bad sign in my opinion. Do you think AMC will follow suit? And what are the odds Warner Brothers just moves Wonder Woman 84 and Dune into next year in response? All right. This has been the story for the last 48 hours, whatever. It has been the story. Now, of course, on Friday's show, as Rob and I alluded to, we were talking about the fact that they had released the Billie Eilish official music video for James Bond, No Time to Die. And what that led us to believe was that, hey, they could move it still, but I think as of right now, they probably haven't made that decision to move it. Well, they had, because just an hour later, the news officially broke that they were moving it into 2021. And again, I don't blame them for that. I really don't. It's hard to blame them for doing that because right now everybody's just trying to figure out there's no playbook right now, right? We've talked about this before. There's no blueprint. There's no precedent. This hasn't happened before. This movie theater industry trying to exist and movie studio industry trying to exist within a pandemic has not happened before, where we today can then look back and learn from the lessons of the past. Everybody's just trying to figure it out. So I don't blame them for moving it. But very shortly after they moved it, came word that Cineworld and the chain that they own as well in Regal was going to close all their theaters again. Now, Rob, I don't know if you remember, but back a couple of weeks ago, when it got announced that Black Widow was getting moved, I said on this show, I said, just look for the movie theaters are going to close down again. The movie theaters are going to have to close down again, because the plan was get them open in time for Tenet, and then you could build some momentum from there, then get another big movie, and then get another big movie, and that'll get things going. But with Tenet coming out and then being an island unto itself and nothing else coming out to support it, we've seen that go down. The pandemic has had its own nature, of course. Then all the other movies have moved. I said, you can't keep the movie theaters open if you got nothing to attract the audiences in with. You're losing more money by being open than if you just close the doors and turn off the lights, right? Yeah. And so then the day after that, we heard a representative from, what's the name of the company again? Oh yeah, NATO, the North American Theater Owners, or the National Association of Theater Owners. The NATO rep came out and said, yeah, we're probably going to see these things come down. And then after James Bond moves on Friday, we hear this report. Now, Cineworld then did come out and put out a statement, said, we haven't officially decided to close everything down, but we are seriously considering it. It is official. It is official now. Regal, Cineworld have put out the notes. They have publicly made the announcement that as of this coming Thursday, at the end of business on Thursday, they are shutting all their theaters down. And they specifically point to the fact that they've got no big movies coming right now. And without the big movies to attract audiences to the theaters, to get them turned on to the other, maybe smaller movies, there's just no point for them staying open. This comes to us from Variety, who writes, Cineworld could shutter 543 of its Regal cinema venues in the United States and all cinemas across the UK and Ireland this coming week. And it is official now, by the way. Just a day after the James Bond film No Time to Die was pushed to April of 2021. It, of course, was supposed to open in November. On Sunday afternoon UK time, Cineworld confirmed that it is considering the temporary closure of its US and cinemas. Again, this is now official. They have now come out in the last 24 hours and confirmed they are doing this, so it's now done. Of its UK and US cinemas, but that a final decision hasn't been reached yet. It, of course, has been now. Variety understands that staff were informed of Cineworld's plan on Sunday ahead of the company's statement, with HR explaining that the closure of all cinemas is one option that is strongly being considered, though a decision hasn't yet been made. And once again, just to be clear, the decision has been made. They have, in the last 24 hours, put out statements to say, we have decided, end of business Thursday, we're shutting everything down again. This raises a couple of questions. First of all, was this the right thing for Cineworld to do? Yes, this is absolutely the right thing for Cineworld to do. Because what I've been saying for a while is this. Movie theaters will be fine. The movie theaters will be fine. They will recover and all this kind of stuff if, and this is the huge if they can survive until the movies start coming out again. Now, Rob and I talked about the Empire Strikes Back analogy to this. It's kind of like, yes, Han Solo will be fine in the carbonite. He'll be fine. But as 3PO said, if he survives the freezing process. That's the big here. If the theaters can survive until the movies start coming out again, they'll be fine. With that in mind, places like Cineworld, who opened back up under the hope that we were going to start to get a string of movies being released after Tenet, they have now got to go into survival mode. And the best way for them to go into survival mode is just to turn off the lights and lock the doors for now and conserve their assets, conserve their finances, conserve their liquidity, if you will. Make sure that they are in a good position to survive, hibernate, if you will, until the movies start coming out again. And now, as far as the question about will AMC follow suit, I have zero doubt. I haven't heard from anybody, Rob, saying that AMC is looking at doing this, but they have to. They have to. They have no movies coming out. You cannot keep the lights on, and you cannot keep paying staff and janitorial and bills and all that kind of stuff when you aren't getting enough people in the doors to meet that expense. You're losing money faster by being open than if you just close the doors. So they're going to have to go into hibernation mode too until this happens. Could they be back open in December? It's possible. Rob, you and I were just talking about Free Guy, about whether or not Free Guy will actually open on December 11th. I don't think it will, but it's still possible. That we're still talking about something that is a couple of months away. And as you and I have pointed out several times, Rob, this pandemic thing is causing the rules to change day by day. Like every day, the situation changes, right? So it's possible the December films could still come out. It's possible. I don't feel very optimistic about that, but it is possible that Dune could still come out, that Free Guy still could come out on December 11th, because again, just because the situation is changing every 24 hours rapidly, and it's still 2 months away, I don't feel very enthusiastic about it. But Rob, I'm going to tell you one other thing. And this is the part that frustrates me. Right now, we are now in a situation where what Tenet did to come out first, to be that first penguin in the water, to try to be the thing to spark the rejuvenating of the movie industry again, it was basically all for nothing. Because in order for Tenet doing what it did to work, meant that other films later would have to come out to take advantage of and carry on that momentum. And without any other movies now coming out after it, it literally meant at the end of the day, Tenet, despite its valiant effort, it really did it for nothing. It was all for naught. And now we're back to square one. A big part of that is, of course, because a lot of places still won't open movie theaters. New York State is a big example of that. You open gyms and restaurants and every other type of public place, but not movie theaters. Really? Bowling alleys? You opened, but not movie theaters. And here's the part where it really becomes frustrating to me, Rob, is that I've said, and most people have said, that look, you can't step outside your door unless you're wearing a hazmat suit and not understand you are in some risk of contracting the virus. Whenever you step outside your door, there's a risk. The idea is we do smart things to minimize the risk. Don't get into big public gatherings. Make sure you're washing your hands. Wear the damn masks. Do all the things you need to do. Do the smart things. And Rob, I've been to the movie theaters twice in the past while. And each time I have gone, I have felt like they have gone above and beyond to make sure it is as risk reduced as possible. Big social distancing. They minimized how many people could be in the theater. They required the mask, tons of hand sanitizer over. They made me feel very secure. And here's the part that frustrates me. The head of NATO, again, the National Association of Theater Owners, pointed out a statistic that just frustrates me even more. When they pointed out this, he was asked, have there been any cases of coronavirus that have been linked to people going to the movies? Because the movie theaters have been, a lot of movie theaters in the world have been open, Rob. A lot of them have been open.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And so they asked them point blank, have there been any cases of corona that have been verified, tracked to movie theaters? This is what he said. Not one. Movie theaters aren't just open in the US. They have been open around the world and doing a lot of business for several months. We asked our epidemiologists to go review all the global medical literature on where coronavirus outbreaks have occurred. It turns out that not a single reported outbreak of the virus was linked to movie theaters. There are reported cases that are linked to churches, restaurants, other places where people gather, which are open, but not one from movie theaters. We have yet to, we haven't had one yet, and we shared that fact with Governor Cuomo, who of course is the governor of New York City, who's doing the best he can, by the way, in the midst of a pandemic. But we'll open bowling alleys and churches and restaurants and whatever else, but not movie theaters. And yet, with all the stuff out there, because movie theaters took it seriously, they took serious steps to put in strict guidelines and safety procedures that does not eliminate the risk, but it minimizes the risk. You're getting cases reported that have been traced back to all these other places, not one from movie theaters, which tells me that this whole thing, that what Tenet did to try to come out and get everything going, it didn't have to be for nothing. It didn't have to be for nothing. What Tenet did in cooperation with what the theaters and their safety protocols worked. And it didn't have to be for nothing. And again, Rob, I want to make it really clear here. I'm not blaming anybody specifically because everybody's just trying to figure this out as they go. There is no playbook. There is no guidelines for this whole thing. And everybody's just doing the best they can. But it adds to my frustration as a film fan when you look at the actual data and you realize it could have worked. It could have worked. But now the theater's got to go back into survival mode. They've got to shut back down again. Maybe they'll come back out in December, maybe not till January, February, who knows. Again, I think the theater industry will be perfectly fine if they can survive until then, but surviving until then becomes a big question mark. Anyway, Rob, there's a lot of data here, a lot of information, right, a lot of things to look at. You look at this whole situation, what are the first, things that jump out to you?
Well, like you, I've been watching this and reading all about it. And in Deadline this morning, Cineworld's boss, I love his name. His name is Mookie Greidinger.
Yeah, I love his name.
Mookie Greidinger.
Good old Mookie.
He came out and actually made a couple of good points. One, he said that one of the reasons is that Andrew Cuomo, the governor of New York, like you had pointed out, has made it untenable for them because he declared movie theaters non-essential. And the frustration they're having is that, like you said, why aren't you going to let us open theaters? I mean, we've proven we can do it, and you're still saying no. And so, the governor of New York was not going to let one of the biggest markets open in the United States. And then also he said the straw that broke the camel's back was Bond pulling out because, like you've pointed out, there was no momentum. In the case of opening movie theaters, it should have been, and I don't know how you could have done this, but there should have been a coordinated effort. Like Tenet would come out, then another tentpole movie might come out 3 or 4 weeks later, so you could build that momentum. But I think, John, there is a economic reality to this situation that is inescapable. And that is, in this current climate, even with all of the safety protocols, the theaters are only going to be half full, half capacity from what they normally are. And a movie that's as expensive as Tenet or No Time to Die, which is even more expensive, simply cannot make its money back in the theatrical marketplace. And the studios, by releasing these large movies, are burning up half of their profit. And a $250 million movie like No Time to Die, it can't afford to come out in the current marketplace because it can't recoup. They rely on these movies. No Time to Die is a movie that's going to make, based on the previous performance of the Daniel Craig Bonds, it's going to make an $800 million to $1 billion, maybe even more. And so they're relying on that number to make it worth their while. And if it's not worth their while, if they're only going to get $300 or $400 or $500 million at the box office, it's not enough to be profitable. It's not enough. They need to make that money, and they simply cannot do it in this world climate now. They can't do it. So they're forced, their hand is forced. And I think that movies like Dune, I think unless theaters are in a better situation and more people are going, I don't think we're going to see Dune. And I don't think we're going to see any big tentpole movies come out anytime soon. And it's just a necessity of life right now. They can't afford to release these films.
Yeah. And listen, also, I think we were just talking about recently, Soul was still scheduled to come out in November. Yeah. Disney just recently, just this past week, doubled down, saying, nope, Soul's coming out in theaters. Well, that was before Regal said there ain't going to be any Regal cinemas. And I'm telling you right now, AMC is going to have to follow suit because they're in bigger financial trouble than any of the rest of them. So they need to go into survival mode as too. So that's great that Disney, bravo to Disney for holding their ground, saying, but there's not going to be any theaters for them to open up in. And they go. I was reading this Variety article too, Rob, that was really pointing out that New York isn't just big. Like the importance of New York State being closed down wasn't just because it's got a big part of the potential audience. It's also a trend-setting, pop culturally relevant. It's that and Los Angeles biggest influencer territory there is.
Right.
Like a lot of the taste making is done in New York. And if that's closed and theaters aren't open in Los Angeles either, that throws a lot of wrenches into it as well. And it all comes down to, can they survive until it comes out? Because Rob, I know we've had some debates about this, but I am still really very much of the belief that, let's say February comes around, right? And we've seen the downturn in the virus, all that kind of stuff. The theaters, the studios are ready to release these big films. The things are there. Listen, the part of the reason I'm so confident that the theaters will recover is because right now, 2021 is packed with giant tentpole exciting films. You got a lot of people who haven't been to the theaters in 7 or 8 months. You got all these high profile things. I think you're going to see a very, very virus and global situation notwithstanding, of course, if this allows. But if everything is where it should be, 2021 could be a very good year. Dare I say, better than it would have been before. But the trick is going to be if they can survive that far, if they can hold out. Can they go into hibernation and maintain enough of that bare body fat to keep them alive until that comes? Rob, what are our chances here?
It really depends. I mean, look at our own government. Our president now has COVID, and how far into this pandemic are we? I mean, you and I have been sheltering at home since March, and has this virus really abated? And we're going into the winter. I mean, look, I would like to see. There's nothing I'd like more than to go back to movie theaters, but if the United States can't get its act together, we might not see movies opening in April of next year. I think the jury's really still out. I mean, I hope to God we do. And I hope everybody gets better. But even today, like the White House press secretary, she announced that she's positive for COVID. And it's not going anywhere. We haven't done a very good job getting rid of this virus in this country. And that's on us. That's not movie theaters. Movie theaters are doing everything they could to make them safe. But if the audience isn't going to take responsibility for itself, it doesn't matter how clean movie theaters are. We're never going to get our movie theaters back. So I don't know.
The question is for you guys. What do you think about this move by Regal? It sucks. It sucks. But while acknowledging it sucks, I got to say, I completely agree with the move by Cineworld and Regal. You have got to survive until this thing is remedied, and you just got to survive it. If they can survive, they'll be fine. The question is, will they survive? Will AMC follow suit? I have no doubt. I haven't seen any official word from AMC, but I have no doubt. And I think a lot of the other movie theater chains are going to follow suit here, with no big movies coming out to entice people or to raise awareness about the theaters even being open. This is a no-win situation right now. It sucks because it didn't have to be. But anyway, guys, what do you think about this? Jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With all of that down and out of the way, we are now going to move on and start taking your live questions. Again, how do you get a live comment or question on the show? Simply use the tip link that's in the top of the description of this video. You can just go click on it there, or simply use streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. You'll be getting your comment or question on the show if it's within reason. And of course, you'll be supporting the channel at the same time. All right, guys. Oh, and by the way, I want to mention something. Oh, the glories, Rob, of technology.
Oh, no.
So on Saturday, I did, as I do a lot every weekend, most weekends at any rate, I did an open mic.
Sure.
Right? I did an open mic. And just let me preface this by saying I love YouTube. YouTube gives me this platform to do these shows and have this community. It's a tremendous piece of technology. I love YouTube. Don't get me wrong.
Me too.
But sometimes weird things happen. So here's the deal. I don't know if you knew this, Rob, but there's a function on YouTube where you can have members, like memberships to your YouTube channel and stuff like that.
Yeah, I passed, you have to have 30,000 subscribers to do that. And I just passed that milestone, so I can now have members.
I never knew that. Never knew. So since I didn't even know you could have memberships, I clearly have no memberships, right? Because I didn't even know. So Saturday, I do open mic, right? And fine, it was great show. And then it's up on my channel for like an hour, 2 hours. And then all of a sudden, I start getting messages from people saying, hey, where'd the open mic go? I'm like, oh no, maybe some glitch on YouTube. I go over to YouTube and it says that the video is set so that only members can see it. I'm like, what? I don't have any members. What are you talking about? So I go in and I change it, right, to go public. Doesn't take. And I change it to go public again. Doesn't take. And so I write to YouTube and I'm like, what's going on here? And eventually nothing happened. And so I eventually had just set the damn thing to private because I didn't want people to find the video and say, oh, so only members get to watch this. I'm like, no, I don't even have any memberships. So I set the whole damn thing to private. And then I just deleted the thing, right? I was like, oh, I recorded the show. So I recorded it. So last night I found my recording of it. Sometimes my recordings have glitchy. So I got 90% of the show. So I will be, for those people who have been asking me, hey, what happened to the open mic from Saturday? That's what happened. And I will be reposting it, at least the majority of it. I will be reposting it probably later today, but I found it and I got it all fixed. Anyway, little behind the curtain stuff for you guys who are wondering where the hell that thing went. So anyway, there's that. All right, now let's get on over and start taking the live questions, shall we? Okay, let's get things started off here. And that's not the one we wanted to see. What's going on? Why did that happen? Give me 1 second, guys. I think I have to fix something up here because something got screwed up with everything. But I'll get it. I'll get it. Don't worry. Let me see if that fixes it. That didn't fix it. Let me see if this fixes it. Okay, that fixed it. All right, now let's go over and start taking your live questions, shall we? Okay. We are going to start things off here with Jalen Pryor, who writes, Hancock still needs a sequel. And off topic, but I don't know if you've seen Jumper with Hayden Christensen. I'm actually in Jumper with Hayden Christensen. But damn, I love that movie. Also, fun fact, but I found out Hancock and Mary were actually modern day Zeus and Hades. Love the show. Much love from Toronto. From TO. I'm not familiar with them. Obviously they're supposed to be some kind of like deitic kind of characters. I didn't know they're supposed to be Zeus and Hades. But yes, I am actually an extra on Hayden Christensen's film Jumper. I was on set for a couple of days. I pop up just very quickly in a couple of scenes. You have to look for me very, very closely to find me. But yeah, I am in there on that. Rob, I've always said I'd be down. I'd totally be down for a Hancock sequel. I've always wondered, actually, why hasn't there been one? Because that movie made money. It was the third act was kind of a mess, but overall, it was a pretty well-received movie, and I enjoyed it overall. It had a great cast, but is it too late for them to do Hancock at any point? I think you can still do it. What do you think?
I think you could, too. I mean, I think Hancock is one of those movies that people have seen a lot, like whether it's on streaming or physical media or cable. I mean, it's the movie, they used to be able to make the reason a movie like, say, Terminator 2 was made was because in the home video era, people that didn't go see Terminator in the theater, it was something that everybody saw on cable. It was rented. So by the time they announced the Terminator 2, it was the first $100 million movie. People were primed like, oh yeah. And Terminator 2 came out, 7 years after the original? So I think a movie like Hancock, we now live in a different world where superhero movies are the norm, and Hancock was a franchise unto itself. It's not based on a comic book, and I think it could be very viable. Absolutely, I'd see it.
Yeah, me too. All right, next up. We've got Dwayne Jackson who writes, hey, John and family, during this difficult time that we are living in, if theaters can't return, is there any lessons to be learned from 2020? Personally, I think theaters will be closed until we get a vaccine. I don't know if they necessarily have to be closed until we get a vaccine. See, to me, I've always thought that it's not a matter that we have to wait until the virus has disappeared. I think things can make a return once we have learned to adapt to live with it. The fact that it's there, but we know how to conduct ourselves with it still being there. And I think the statistics they point out about movie theaters, the fact that nobody's contracted at a movie theater, what has been a sign that, hey, if we're smart, and as Rob was saying, if we get our act together, you can function with it still being there. But that's besides the point. Are there any lessons to be learned? Listen, Rob, I think there are going to be a million lessons to be learned here from this, because we've never had this situation before. And now I think moving forward, like, if we as a society like took this thing far more seriously, far sooner, I will tell you right now, we would have been back to relative normal a while ago.
Yes, we
would have been. We would have been back to relative normal a while ago. None of this would be an issue right now if more people just took this damn thing effing seriously the way it should have been in its early February, March days. But we didn't. And so here we are in this mess. I think we've learned a lesson. I think a lot of us have learned a lesson. I think there are things that I assumed when this thing was starting that I have learned were not true. And I think we've all learned stuff. And yeah, what those ones specifically are, other than, take things a lot more seriously. You know what? Them scientists, go figure. They generally know what they're talking about. I think probably there's a bunch of those, but probably in every industry, there's probably a million things. Rob, if you had to think there was one main lesson, particularly in this area that we live in, this little box that we live in of entertainment and things like that, what would you think maybe the main takeaway would be here, the big lesson to be learned out of 2020?
Well, I mean, you have to watch this documentary called The Social Dilemma that's on Netflix. And it's all about how our social media is sort of programming us to feel certain ways that we're already predisposed to think about. And I think the real question is, you have to think back to how our civilization has progressed, John. Like you said, we have YouTube, we have cell phones, we have amazing technology at our fingertips. That's all because of science. You know, it's all because of the many great minds that built upon previously existing technology. We have vaccines like polio vaccines that have saved millions and millions of lives. And now we're living in a world where people don't want to believe certain things. And I think that there's when it comes to things like science, there's a methodology there, like putting on a mask. You know what? What's the harm? Like if somebody says put a mask on, is that really, like, I've been putting on a mask since March. Whether the mask has worked or not, I've been going into public areas like supermarkets, and no one in my family's contracted COVID. You know, we wash our hands diligently. We did those things that we're supposed to do. Hand sanitizers, stayed clean, watched our social distancing, and it's worked so far. God forbid, you know, knock on wood. And when you see people not wearing a bunch of masks and not this is not hard to do, but they turn it into something like, well, this is a personal issue. This is my rights. And we're still where we're at. 25% of the world's COVID cases are in the United States. Why is that? Why is it this country we are hit hard? Because we didn't do simple things. And there's simple things that, why not just do them? Why not just err on the side of caution?
Because people are stupid. Like, I'm sorry. Like there are so many people that have tried to make this a political issue. It's not a political issue. It's an issue about whether you're an idiot or not. I mean, it's just that simple. It's about whether you're a stupid person or not a stupid person. It's just that simple. Like, I don't know how many doctors and scientists and everything have to come out and say, hey, listen, if we just do this, we'll get through this a lot easier. And it's just, and again, it's not all about masks. It's not all about masks.
No.
But that's just a part of it. It's just become kind of a representative thing that people just are going to be stupid. They don't care. And that people are essentially selfish. It's like, oh, if I wear a mask, I reduce the chance that if I happen to have it and I'm asymptomatic and don't even realize it, I could protect the people around me. Nah, F the people around me. I'm just going to do what I want to do. And again, this is not a political issue. I have a friend of mine who is a very, very left-leaning thing, just will not do what they need to do to try to protect themselves or the people around them. And I know people on the right who do the exact same thing. It is not a political issue. It is just a stupidity issue. But
I mean, look, I understand.
Whatever.
I understand where people are coming from, but this is a very real situation. And it doesn't matter whether you believe the virus, whatever you believe, there's just protocols about health. I mean, when you go to the hospital for operations, people wear masks so they don't I mean, How often do you have to wear a mask in your life? I don't have to wear a mask at home. And how many times do I go out now during the week? A few times to the grocery store or something. I always wear a mask. How hard is it going to be? It's not like for the hour I have to wear a mask that it's infringing on my rights as a human being. What's infringing on my rights as a human being is I can't go see Tenet in IMAX in LA.
I saw this great thing that somebody wrote. I can't remember exactly where I read it, but it was like some restaurant put this up. That, it's like, a lot of restaurants put things, hey, please, when you come in, we require you to wear a mask until you're seated at your table that is distanced away from our other patrons to protect our staff and our fellow patrons, blah, blah. And it said, and they put up this totally sarcastic thing, says, we understand that, hey, it's your choice if you want to wear a mask. It's about your choice. But we want to let you also know that our dishwashers, we respect their choice. And so while we suggest they wash their hands after going to the bathroom, we don't make them do it because we don't want to infringe on their rights to choose if they want to wash their hands after taking a piss and holding their dick. That's their choice. So we just hope you, as somebody coming in to eat in our restaurant, will respect that and respect their choice.
Touche.
I just thought that was really funny when I read it. Anyway. Listen, I'm just bitter that I don't get to go to the movies, Rob. That's all this is. This is just me expressing my bitterness that I don't get to go to the movies.
Well,
now.
I say that, and I hope people take it in the spirit it's intended, which is a little tongue in cheek. But in reality, like I'm. There's places that I liked going that are never going to open again.
Yeah.
And we're now in October. We've been sheltering at home since March 16th. I've seen you in person once. When I came over and did the show, and one time, and you and Aaron and I actually got to go and had a meal together. I haven't seen you face to face. It's
been a while.
All summer long. I haven't seen anybody, and it's a little crazy, and it didn't have to be this way. Other countries, although now other countries are surging because people figured, we've done it enough. We don't have to continue to do it. And no. It's coming back.
Yeah, but that's because they're taking it seriously. Like, for instance, in Canada, I know there are some areas where they've seen a spike, but a spike in Canada, for instance, is a totally different thing than a spike in Canada is, this went up by 5 people. And what did they do? As soon as they saw that, boom, lock all the shit down. Lock it down. We got to make sure we keep this thing. New Zealand, which basically led the world in how to deal with this crap, like they started to see minor little things again. They're like, we're not messing around. Lock this shit down again until we get it back down. Like, it's just... Anyway, I could go on about this all day. That's not what we're here to talk about. So let's keep things going, shall we? We'll move on with this next one. Comes to us from an anonymous viewer who writes, hey, John and friends, if we don't have a movie industry, that's if we don't, what will happen to all the big budget movies that are completed and waiting for release? If we don't have theaters anymore, will studios have to adapt a less is more approach? Well, Rob, one of the things I've been saying for a while, number one, there's the movies that have already been made. If for whatever reason, Rob, we get to a place where, Regal, Cineworld, AMC, they don't survive this hibernation period they have to go into.
Right.
And they're not there to open back up again later. Well, then the movies that are already done are just going to have to do what they have to do. They're going to have to do VOD and streaming, and they're going to lose money. They're not going to make the money they would have otherwise. But the bigger question is what happens moving forward. And Rob, I said this the other day, but you weren't here. I'd be curious to know your thoughts on this. I said, what we're going to see eventually evolve and happening is a lot of people make the assumption that if the theaters aren't there, then the movie industry will just stay the same. It's just that going to be the place we see it is just going to be on some streaming service as opposed to in theaters. Other than that, everything will stay the same. And it's not. It's going to change. And it's not going to change for the better. And what you're going to see happening is just look at the way streaming services are happening now. What we see now, if you take Disney Plus for an example, Disney Plus is 1 or 2 prime pieces of content and a whole lot of shelf filler. Some of it better than others. I don't want to turn this into a let's trash, shop class or be our chef or whatever it is they've got on there. But there's some good stuff, but a lot of it is shelf filler. A lot of it is stuff that is not going to be high profile, whatever. It's going to be that. It's going to be a lot of filler, and we're going to get you to come in and we're going to pick this up. The amount of like $150 million big blockbuster films that we get to have every year and geek out over and go and enjoy, those are going to dip drastically. Those are going to decline drastically. And look at Netflix. Netflix right now, and I love Netflix. Don't get me wrong. I've probably been subscribed to Netflix longer than anybody you know. But the reality is, a lot of Netflix's philosophy is quantity over quality. Like for every one Old Guard or for every one Irishman, we get about 40 or 50 of these other low budget Drek kind of things that nobody wants to watch. That's just what it is. And I'm just telling you, that is what is going to evolve. The movie industry is going to evolve into that. And like these glory years, like 2019, Rob, how good did we have it? How good
we had
did
pretty
we
damn
have
good. Pretty damn good.
All these huge, exciting, fun movies that were just coming out, and everybody was happy. The theaters had record-breaking profit years. The studios had record-breaking profit years. The fans had more. Like every time we turned around, there was some big, huge blockbuster. They weren't all great, but we all had these. Every time we turn around, there's some new big blockbuster film that we could all be excited about and geek out over and get pumped about. If the theaters don't survive this, those days are done. Those days are done. And anybody who tells you that it's just all going to stay the same. It's just now we'll watch them on our TV. So they don't know what they're talking about. They simply do not know what they're talking about. It's going to change things drastically. Anyway, Rob, you look at that. What are some of the, like, how do you see things changing if for whatever reason these theaters can't survive this hibernation period that they got to go into now?
Well, there's one, beyond theaters, it's everything that's surrounding theaters. Like people, it's a night out. They go to the restaurant that's by the theaters. So restaurants are then affected. The candy makers and the popcorn makers and the soda makers and all of the businesses that are surrounding these things. And if $200 million movies are no longer being made, think about how many different industries service movie production. I mean, there's expendable industries, lights and duct tape, and all the stuff that is used. I mean, it's an exponential situation across many industries. And not only that, the movies, the studios themselves. I mean, the whole entertainment industry feeds off many other industries, and it feeds off itself. And if the primary driver behind that, big television productions and movie productions, changes or is gone, the ripple effect across many different industries, I think, is incalculable. And now a lot of people would say, well, does it really matter? I mean, those Hollywood elites out there, whatever. Maybe we don't need movies anymore. But we do. The whole world loves movies. And if we don't, the whole world loves Avengers Endgame, and I think that we'll all be diminished if we lose that. I mean, maybe not necessarily Avengers Endgame, but pick your favorite movie, and how movies, by the way, John, they ripple through time. People are still watching Godfather almost 50 years later. People are still, they love these things. I mean, these are, I think they're essential because, like any art, it's not just movies too. It's museums and theater and concerts, and all of the arts traditionally brings people together, and in communally to experience these things. And do we want to lose that part of our lives?
Yeah. And, the other thing for me, and this is just speaking for myself, like I've told you before, Rob, I've said this many times, a day that I wake up knowing that I'm going to the movies sometime today.
Yep.
Just makes it a great day for me. Like whether it's I got a press screening of something later today, or me and Ann got tickets for opening night of, whatever the name of the movie is. When I wake up on a day that I know I'm going to the movies that day, it's a good day. To me, the movies movies are an event to me. And don't get me wrong, I enjoy kicking back and popping on something on TV at home later on. Absolutely, I do. That's great. And I'll continue to do that even if the movie theaters disappear.
Sure.
But the idea of going to the movies, as opposed to, what the hell, man? You want to sit on your couch tomorrow night and watch Mulan just like you do every fucking night?
Right.
Just sit on your ass on a couch alone with your remote? No, man, I want to get up. I want to go out. I want to go see, I want to go see Free Guy. I want to get together with some friends. I want to make a night out of it. I want us to go grab a drink on some outdoor patio somewhere. Even though my drink will be Diet Coke because I don't drink alcohol, but I want to go get some drinks. And then I want to go into a theater where there's 40 or 50 other people, regularly 300 or 400 other people, but whatever. I want to go to a theater where people are laughing together and having a time, and then coming out of the theater and feeling the buzz of the crowd and all that kind of stuff. Yes, we can just sit in our gitch on our couch watching our TV like we do every other freaking stupid night. Yes, but to me, movies, and again, I'm only speaking for myself, but like, movies are events to be celebrated and enjoyed in a community setting. And listen, if the movie theaters disappear, there will still be movies. There will still be entertainment. We're living maybe in the best era of television ever right now. So there'll still be television series and all that kind of stuff. And we'll all still be here and we'll all still be fine. But dude, I'm telling you that the idea of losing that theatrical experience, it guts me. It really does. Just as a fan, it totally guts me. And, Yeah, there you go. Anyway, sorry guys, I'm keeping us sidetracked on a lot of different topics today, but let's keep on moving, shall we? Let's see. Next up, Dark Knight Rises writes, "Hey John, what if Warner Brothers would develop a massive marketing campaign prior to the release of the Batman using the theme I Am Vengeance on t-shirts, billboards, etc.? I think it's a provocative idea. What's your take?" Well, I don't care. No, I don't think I Am Vengeance is something you can base a marketing campaign around, to be honest with you. Now, listen, this is obviously coming from the fact that in the trailer, the one thing there are two things I didn't totally love about the Batman trailer. And I love the Batman trailer. I thought the Batman trailer was great. It's not perfect. There were just two little things that I didn't love. One was kind of the way he looked as Bruce Wayne a little bit. Minor thing. I think once I see it in context, I'm going to love it. The other thing is that line, "Who are you? I am vengeance." I bet I didn't like it in the trailer. But as I've said before, I hated the Nightwing line, "Fuck Batman," in the Titans trailer. But then when I saw it in context, I'm like, you know what? In context, that's a line that works. It just didn't work in the trailer. That's all. I have a feeling that I Am Vengeance, but I don't think you can build a marketing campaign around that. That's just my take. Dark Knight Rises also writes, "Hey, John, how much stock do you put in Oscar nomination and wins?" Huge amount, as a matter of fact. "I read Richard Burton was nominated 7 times, 0 wins. Harrison Ford, only 1 nomination. Richard Gere and Donald Sutherland have never even been nominated. That's irrelevant." Listen, that's the thing I keep talking about, Rob. When it comes to what everybody forgets when it comes to Oscars, everybody thinks, oh, Harrison Ford's great. Well, why doesn't he have an Oscar? Well, because they don't just hand out Lifetime Achievement Awards 50 times a year, right? This is why the Oscars are so special and why they're so tough, is that every year you can't just have a great performance. You got to have like the performance of your life. And then you got to hope that there weren't 4 other guys who had even better performances of their lives that year. Right? So, yeah, guess what? I remember we had a big discussion about Harrison Ford a couple of years ago back at AMC, and we went through all the years that he had some big performances, and we looked at who he was not, and we went down the chart, we made graphics, and we went down through the charts like, okay, this year that he did this movie, these are the people who were nominated. Would you have bumped any of those nominees and those performances for Harrison Ford that year? No, honestly, we wouldn't. And then you go again and again. So yeah, listen, the reason I put a lot of stock in the Academy Awards as opposed to say any other awards body is that the Academy Awards are actually adjudicated by actual film people, by directors and writers and actors and cinematographers and executives and costume people and musicians who work in music. And it's 7,000 people who actually make movies. The people who would actually know. And that doesn't make it perfect by any such. You've heard me bitch and complain about the Oscars before, but it's the best system there is. So yeah, I personally, it's not the be all end all. Absolutely not. But all things considered, I personally put a lot of stock in Oscars. And I think it's incredibly a huge honor to be nominated for an Oscar or to win an Oscar. I put a lot of stock in it. It's not the be all end all, but I put a lot into it. Rob, where are you on that as far as that goes?
Alfred Hitchcock never won an Oscar for Best Director.
That's true.
Stanley Kubrick never won an Oscar for Best Director. They got honorary Oscars, but I mean, to me, it's a combination of a number of factors, and I think that a lot of it has to do with what movies came out that year. It's a little bit of luck, but I don't rate somebody based on whether or not that they've received an Oscar. Harrison Ford has delivered some great performances, things like The Mosquito Coast. He was terrific in that. Witness. Amazing in that, and maybe the stars just never aligned to allow him to be in a field where he wasn't outclassed or somebody was better than him. But I don't think it really matters.
Yeah, it's not the be all end all. It's just not the be all end all. But it means a lot for somebody to say they got 2 Oscar nominations. That, make no mistake about how huge that is. And Rob, I would honestly say that the fact that, a Harrison Ford hasn't won one, that only reinforces how big of a deal it is when somebody does get an Oscar nomination and when somebody does win an Oscar. So be all end all, absolutely not. But yeah, I put a lot into it still, nonetheless, but that's just me. Anyway, Doug Tarnovian writes, "Hey, John and guest. My favorite theater, Patriot Cinema in Massachusetts, is not doing so well. One of their locations shut down and other 2 have closed until November. I'm sad because the closest theater to me is now 30 to 45 minutes away from me. Also saw Tenet. I really enjoyed it." Well, here's the reality is, Doug, as we've been talking about here, is that the reality is those theaters are probably going to be shutting down too. I think just about, I'm going to guess 90% within the next 4 weeks. I think just about probably 90% of all theaters in the United States will be going into hibernation mode, going into survival mode, and just try to survive. It's like Daniel Day-Lewis said in Last of the Mohicans, Rob, just stay alive. No matter what, stay alive. I think that's basically what the theaters have to do now. Just stay alive. Stay alive until the movies can come back. And that's going to be the challenge moving forward. All right, next up. Magic K writes, "I think Dune might end up being moved to 2021 due to its pretty close to Wonder Woman 84. But on the other hand, even if Dune keeps its release date, people won't think it actually makes to theaters. What's your opinion?" Well, now listen. Dune being close to Wonder Woman 84 would not make Dune move. I mean, the Christmas season, we often see filled up with killer rows of movies because that's when it is the most attended, single week or two of movies of the year is actually Christmas week. That's when more people go to the movies than anything. Christmas Day is actually the number 1 day of movie attendance of the year. That's very weird because that's not something we do in Canada usually. So it was really weird for me to find that out when I came down to the States, that that's a big thing. The question is ultimately going to be, are theaters going to be open? I mean, that's the question. It's not about Wonder Woman. It's not about anything else. It's, are theaters going to be open in December? I have grown increasingly skeptical about that. I still think there's a chance because, again, we're living in an era right now where things change so drastically in 24 hours that I can't tell you for certain what's going to happen 2 weeks from now, let alone 2 months from now. So is it possible Wonder Woman, Free Guy, Dune, they all still open in December? It's possible. It's possible. I like I said, I'm just growing increasingly pessimistic about it. That's all. So, but it's not going to be Wonder Woman. If Dune gets pushed, it's not going to be Wonder Woman that pushes it out. That you don't have to worry about. All right. Dark Knight Rises writes, "What's your opinion of Warren Beatty?" Oh, he's Hollywood royalty. "I just watched Bugsy the other night, and even though it's a drama, I realize Beatty has great comic ability, which reminds me a bit of Golden Era Hollywood. He kind of is Golden Era Hollywood in many ways. Is he retired? I'd hate to see him just fade away." I don't think he's retired, Rob. He just had a movie like 3 years ago that got nominated for Academy Award that he was in and he directed. And I think it's like The Education of somebody something. I can't remember the name of it. Anyway, what are your overall thoughts of Warren Beatty?
I'm a huge Warren Beatty fan. Oh, he made the movie about the Leonardo DiCaprio character from The Aviator. The billionaire.
Yeah, that's the one I'm thinking of. I'm trying to remember. I'm just trying to remember what it was actually
called. And why
called.
am I drawing it? Look, Warren Beatty, isn't he like 84 or something? I love Warren Beatty. I've always loved Warren Beatty. I love the fact that people are working. I mean, they just announced Clint Eastwood's going to star in and direct another movie, and he turned 90 in May.
By the way, it's Rules Don't Apply.
Rules Don't Apply.
Rules
right.
Don't Apply. That's the one he did.
Why am I drawing a blank on I love The Aviator? Why am I Howard Hughes? Playing Howard Hughes. And I love Warren. I've always loved Warren Beatty, all the way back to things like Bonnie and Clyde. I mean, Shampoo. I loved Bugsy, man. He was so good in Bugsy, where he met Annette Bening and she said that great line, "Why don't you go outside and jerk yourself a soda?" I love that. I mean, it's I guess they met on that movie and they've been married ever since. I mean, Warren Beatty, one of my favorite movies is his film Reds that he directed.
Yep.
I mean, that's a fantastic film. And he's a true Hollywood giant. I mean, what a legend that guy is.
Yep. But as far as is he retired? As of right now, I don't see anything he has listed as coming up. He did a TV short in 2018. As a producer, he doesn't have anything upcoming. The last thing he produced was 2016 Rules Don't Apply. So he might be retired. If
He's
he is, good on him.
83, John. 83.
Yeah, and if he is retired, good on him. He's earned it. All right, next up, Anonymous Viewer writes, Lucasfilm needs to introduce windmills in Star Wars because that's what the fans want. Get it? There we go. All right, next up.
Joke, whoever wrote that's shameful.
No wonder they left it anonymous. Tyson Ackerstrom writes, "Hey, John and company, I'm a huge fan of the show. Thank you so much. And more importantly, like you, John, a massive Henry Cavill fan. While I'm sure you've seen all he's done several times over, I'm curious if you saw 2018's Night Hunter. Thanks, John, and bring on the filthy." I did not. As a matter of fact, there's a couple of things he's done. Hold on a second. Let me bring this up here. There's a couple of things he's done that were straight to home video. Actually, he did a straight to home video one with Bruce Willis a number of years ago too, that I never bothered to watch. This is the film he's talking. Now, he did this one with Ben Kingsley, if I can bring this up. He did Night Hunter with Ben Kingsley, but this was again a straight to home video service kind of movie. Oddly enough, he's done a number of these ones that I honestly haven't checked out. I haven't watched them. Mostly it's been the regular television or movie stuff. My first exposure to him was The Tudors, which he's fantastic in, by the way. But no, I have not checked out Night Hunters, as a matter of fact. He's got an inexplicable string, though, of straight-to-home video movies. But I am a massive Cavill fan. I absolutely am. Alan Wade writes, "Hey, John and Rob. With the impending closure of Regal and Cineworld, I am more than concerned that the theater chains will not survive this. Are we seeing the start and end of what we define as the theatrical experience? Thanks, and stay safe." Well, I mean, that's the big question. Again, I ultimately truly do 100% believe that if the theaters cannot die between now and when the studios are ready and confident to start pushing their movies out again, they will be fine. They will. Again, last year, 2019, saw crazy revenue for the studios, for the theaters. I think it was like the third biggest year financially in theatrical history. They'll be fine. The question is, can they survive to that point? And that's where the big question mark is. I mean, AMC was already in trouble. Now, Rob, I remember a report came out about 2 months ago that AMC said that they have secured enough financing that they can survive until into the first quarter of the new year. So that's good. So maybe it looks like AMC, if they go into deep hibernation mode and don't bleed out finances, maybe they'll be okay. Regal and Cineworld too. But that's the question. How long can you go without doing business? Rob, I don't know a lot of businesses that can just say, we're just not going to do any business for 9 months and survive. So that's the question. And it's, do they survive the freezing process of the carbonite chamber? I mean, that's it. But again, Rob, I feel very confident that they will be fine if they can make it to that point. I just don't know if they're going to make it to that point. What do you think their chances are?
I want to be optimistic. I mean, movie theaters and movie going has been such a part of my life since I was a little kid. I was hoping it'd be a part of my life till I died. And I want movie theaters to stick around. But like you just pointed out, it's academic. It's not about whether I want or what we want or what everybody wants. It's the fact that, like you said, movie theaters, their only job is to show movies to large groups of people. And if we live in a world where there's no movies to show large groups of people because large groups of people can't get together, what are they supposed to do? There's nothing you can do. They've tried, like, hey, rent out a movie theater, whatever, watch a football game. I'm not optimistic about it.
All right, let's move on here. The sock writes, Star Wars Squadrons, which I bought the other day. Star Wars Squadrons is selling a bundle that includes a Luke Skywalker helmet as a headset. Really? Sony's about to drain my wallet dry, man. Yeah, Star Wars Squadrons came out the other day. I didn't even realize it was about to come out. And then somebody said, hey, Squadrons just came out. I'm like, well, I know what I'm doing for the afternoon. And I went and got Squadrons. Looks great. I only had a chance to play it for like a half hour, though, because I had work to do. So I'm hoping a little bit later today. Anne's got some classes she needs to take, so I'm hoping when she's doing that, I'm just going to hunker down here and play a little bit of Squadrons. But it looks like have you had a chance to play it yet, Rob?
No, but I can't wait. I hate when something like that comes out because everybody in my feed's like, hey, I'm playing this and I'm on this level and how do you get past this, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, damn it. I've just been too busy. I'm trying to do this film festival I'm putting on, and I just don't have time to play. I really want to blow some shit up, John. I really do. And I don't have time.
Next, it's worth it. It's a lot of fun. Let's see here. Next up, Damo Davies writes, greetings from the UK. Although my favorite Bond is Brosnan, my favorite moment from Bond ever was not in a movie, but when he arrives at Buckingham Palace to escort Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II to the 2012 British Olympic opening ceremony. Amazing. Rob, do you remember that? For those of you who don't remember, it was as the Olympics were about to get going, and they actually got the Queen herself to appear in this, which never happens.
And Danny Boyle directed it.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
And Daniel Craig, who is quoted as saying, he said, out of everything he's ever done in his career, that's the one he will talk about for the rest of his life. Daniel Craig, as Bond, has to show up to escort Her Majesty to I believe it was the opening ceremonies of the game. And they actually got the Queen to play along with it. Hello, Bond. It was, now you got to understand, I am from, Her Majesty's realm. I'm from Canada. We are still, technically speaking, Queen Elizabeth is still, technically speaking, the head of the Canadian government. Even though we are completely independent, she is symbolically the head of the Canadian government. And so for a lot of people like me and my wife, Anne, Rob, Anne and Kaori are obsessed with the Queen and the royal family. They are obsessed with the Queen and the royal family. Like, their one big thing is they want to visit London and go see Buckingham Palace. That's my wife's big dream right now. But it was a really big kick seeing the Queen herself in there. I thought it was great. I don't know that they'll ever do anything like that again, but I just thought it was awesome. If you guys haven't seen it, go find it on YouTube. It was a real kick. All right, next up. Jamie Hardy writes, one of two. Hey, John, first, sorry to hear about your grandfather. It's never easy. I appreciate that. Thank you. All of mine have passed on, and it's always hard. I was watching Spider-Man Far From Home again this week, which I do really like. However, one minor point suddenly hit me. With Peter and Happy are flying from Holland to the UK. The graphic says they arrive over the coast of Dorset, which is way over on the west coast of the UK. On such a big budget movie, how do these mistakes get made? And do any spring to your mind? Stay strong, dude. I have no recollection of that happening whatsoever. I can only assume that maybe you just perceived it incorrectly. Rob, do you remember that thing specifically happening?
No, but I mean, maybe they made a stop before they landed somewhere else.
Yeah. So what? Okay. So
Flew
one
in a different
option
way.
here, Jamie, is that maybe you just perceived it incorrectly. Maybe if you look at it differently, whatever. Otherwise, I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, did it matter? Probably not. I mean, look, if I, as a Canadian, saw them doing the map, flying to Toronto, and they ended up putting Toronto on the west coast of Canada, I would, as a Canadian, I would probably go, hey, come on. But ultimately, really, does that do anything to the movie? Does it ultimately really matter? No, it doesn't really matter. So I would say problem one is maybe how you perceived it. Maybe you just perceived it incorrectly. Number two, it was probably one that they realized it doesn't really matter. So that they just moved on from there. But yeah, that stuff happens, Jamie. It does happen. All right. Next up, Dan S. writes, John, I finally took your advice and started Doom Patrol, Season 1, Episode 11, where Larry visits his old lover and Cliff visits Clara. I love that episode. Had me in tears, and the freaking beard guy is amazing and gross and everything. Oh my God, this show is amazing. Can't wait to get on to Season 2. And I think I even like Season 2 even more than Season 1. They get into stuff with Candlemaker and all this kind of stuff, and it's just a lot of fun. But Doom Patrol is one of the deepest, heaviest shows wrapped up in a candy bar wrapping of fun and like quirkiness and wackiness. It's just, I've never seen a combination like it before. It's absolutely amazing. I'm glad you're liking it, Dan. All right, Jamie Hardy writes, He's had a bunch of awards and nominations through his career, but I feel Michael Keaton deserves more respect than he has received for his diverse work through the years and always nailing it. Over under 50%, he gets a Lifetime Achievement Oscar. Under 50%. I mean, they are very stingy about giving out those Lifetime Achievement Oscars. And whenever they do, it's always like universally acknowledged. Oh, hell yeah, that guy gets it. Like, or that woman, it's universally usually acknowledged. Is Michael Keaton underappreciated? I don't know that he is, Rob, because whenever I hear Michael Keaton's name brought up, it's always done so from a place of reverence almost. Like I think he gets a lot of credit, and I think and well deserved, but I don't think he's some like fly under the radar, the quirky little career that Michael Keaton had. I think he has a very, very well-respected career. He's had Academy Award nomination. He was recently nominated, of course, for Birdman. He got nominated for, then the year after that, the movie he starred in about the newspaper won Best Picture at the Academy Awards. I think he's looked at very seriously with a lot of stuff. But Rob, if you had to say over or under 50% that Michael Keaton ends up with a Lifetime Oscar, an honorary Oscar, would you go over or under that? I'm
going to go under. I mean, look, I love Michael Keaton. I've loved Michael Keaton since I first saw him in Night Shift. What, 82? When he played Bill Blazejowski. I loved him in that. But I don't know. He's had a great career, certainly. But I don't know if his career, other than, say, Batman, has had a huge cultural impact. I mean, usually, like you said, they're stingy with those awards, and they give those awards to, like, legends. But you never know. I mean, his career's not over.
Yep. I think I first, was it Mr. Mom? That might be the one, the first one I saw with him. And then what was the one he did where there were a bunch of guys who got out of the asylum? I can't. If you guys in the chat remember the name of that one, I love that one too. And then he did the one. Somebody's mentioning it. Don't forget Clean and Sober. Clean and Sober was here. Dream Team. Thank you, Quirky John. Yeah, Dream Team. Right. I love Dream Team. And then didn't he do that one like where he was like the duplicates of himself? I'm trying to remember. Multiplicity. He's done a lot of great ones and even better ones in recent careers. Yeah, but I'd say right now, I'd say under 50% that he gets that. Ryan Lohner writes, if this Godfather movie works out, here's some other insane productions that would make great movies. The Wizard of Oz, Mr. Roberts, Cleopatra, The Magnificent Seven, Jaws, Caddyshack. Cleopatra is absolutely, of course, the one Ryan's talking about, like what Godfather movie? They just announced last week that we were going to get Jake Gyllenhaal and Oscar Isaac starring in a movie called what was it going to be called again? Francis and the Godfather?
Yeah, I think
Francis and the Godfather, about Francis Ford Coppola getting The Godfather made. Rob, the stories behind Cleopatra, Cecil B. DeMille's classic. That when you read any of the history about because you got to remember, when you watch this movie, don't forget, this was not where you could put in CGI backgrounds and CGI crowds and CGI this and see. It was all done with a camera and a lens and real stuff that's in front of it. And the story behind it is amazing. I would vote for Cleopatra. Rob, if you had to pick one that you would like to see making of, Wizard of Oz, Mr. Roberts, Cleopatra, The Magnificent Seven, Jaws. Jaws would be another good one too, with all the problems they had with the shark, or Caddyshack. Which one stands out to you that you'd really love to see a making of movie about?
Well, the great documentarian Kevin Burns, who passed away last week, he did the definitive documentary on the making of Cleopatra, the different iterations of it, and the different directors and people that were involved, and it's pretty crazy, and it's epic, and it deals with, I think, the period of time in Hollywood, the star power that was involved. I think that would probably be my favorite. That would be the thing that would be the most interesting, because, it's like we've seen movies or TV shows like Fosse and Verdon, like that came out last year about Bob Fosse. When the personalities are so colorful, that's when I think you have the best drama. And who's more colorful than Elizabeth Taylor?
Yeah,
and Richard Burton. Bring it on.
All right, next up, John Campea writes, if theaters die, will the already filmed tentpole movies be the last big budget blockbusters we will ever see? If everything is made for streaming, does it make financial sense to spend $200 million on just one movie ever again? So as I said a little bit earlier, yes, we will still get those. They will just be much fewer and much further in between. That's the one thing, right? Netflix will still want to make a big statement tentpole film, maybe even two in a particular year. Amazon will want to make a big, so I believe, Rob, they'll still be there.
Yeah.
I just don't believe at all there will be nearly as many, or that we as fans will have nearly the amount of choice and nearly the amount of options from the moving forward. But I do think they'll still be there to a degree. What do you think?
I did too. I mean, you hear that Netflix is going to have, the Russo brothers is going to make it, $200 million action flick for Netflix. I'm in. Yeah, I think we're going to get those. I don't know if we're going to see our beloved franchises like the MCU, continue the way that they were continuing. Although, I mean, look at the MCU. They've got like 5 movies in a row scheduled within a year between 2021 and 2022. Is that going to happen? I hope so, but I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Move on here. Dylan Payton writes, hey, John, today is my 26th birthday. Happy birthday, Dylan. May you have a magnificent day and a magnificent year ahead of you, my friend. I can't believe it's already been 1 year since the release of Joker. It is now my favorite film other than Star Wars. Thank you for a year after year of amazing content, and I'm absolutely thrilled to see your doc. Well, thank you so much for that, Dylan. I appreciate that. Rob, can you believe it's been a year since you, me, Elizabeth, Tom, Aaron's husband. Remember we went over to AMC Burbank 16 to go watch. Can you believe that was a year ago?
No.
I can't believe that was a year ago.
I can't believe it was a year ago, and I can't believe it's October. Of all the I guess because we've had this routine of doing these YouTube shows, and one day just melts into another day, and I can't believe it. I can't believe it. And that was the last time I've seen movies since. We saw movies after that, but that was a very satisfying time at the movies, because that was the first time I was in the AMC's Dolby Cinema.
Oh, that's right, at the Prime there, yeah.
And you got those tickets, man, the sweet spot. That was awesome. I love that experience. Yeah,
that was a lot of fun. All right, Josh Allen writes, bring back your loyalty to Buffalo. Hey, listen, it's good to see the Bills doing well. It really, really is. But yeah, the way they screwed over Flutie. They lost me as them being my number one team, unfortunately. And how great was it seeing John Noble on The Boys? I tell you what, I nearly jumped out of my seat when I was sitting on my couch with Ann watching The Boys. Because Rob, we Thursday night, like once it hits like 7 p.m., we just start checking to see if they've dropped the new episode of The Boys yet, and they dropped it pretty early this week. Anyway, and we're watching, I'm like, it's Denethor! It's the Steward of Gondor! Like, I love seeing him whenever he pops up. I just love seeing him whenever he pops up. And it was really great seeing him in there as Butcher's dad. And I have a feeling we haven't seen the last of him. I don't think you get a John Noble to just pop in for like one scene and then be gone. I think we're gonna see more of him, but it was great. Did you have a chance to see that episode yet? To see Noble pop up in there?
I mean, how funny is it? Éomer and Denethor in the same two Lord of the Rings veterans talking to each other. I did see, I had seen I'd watched it and then the internet had gone out here, our internet. So I had not seen on Friday. I had not seen all of that episode, which I did catch up on. And
how about that ending, huh?
Oh my God. I can't believe there's only, you know what I loved? It's Anthony Starr, right? Anthony
who
Starr
plays Homelander.
The last scene of The Boys, what he's just kind of standing, looking around, trying to figure out what's going on in that last scene. He's looking around looking at the expression on his face, this sort of, he's a great actor. Yeah. Like he's a great actor playing that role, but even he, like there was a sort of, he knew he couldn't get hurt, so he was both bemused and I was just, I don't know why it hit me, but just the look on his face when he's looking around going, I don't really know what's going on, but this is really amusing. And he had this great look, and I don't know where there's only one more episode, John. Friday's the last episode. I'm like, I want him to decide that he's going to take over the world. I mean, like, they're building up to something, and I can't believe there's only another hour left of The Boys, and that's it.
I know.
I'm like, they've been positioning all these pieces all season, and now, it's going to be over.
I cannot wait for this finale. I cannot wait to see where they're going with this. I have a theory, too. I have a theory.
I want to hear your theory.
Here's my theory. So for those, I'll veil it a little bit just for those who haven't seen the episode yet. But that ending with what was happening at the ending. Here's my theory about who's doing that. I said this from the beginning. When we saw that scene earlier this season, when Homelander goes into the offices of Giancarlo Esposito, and Esposito's character doesn't seem the least bit worried. I think Giancarlo Esposito's character is behind but I don't know that. But that's my guess. I think we're going to find out he's maybe better than Homelander, but I don't know. We'll find out. All right. Last question here, though. We'll do with Rob still here, because it's 11:30. So he's got to go, and because he's got work to do. We're going to go with Puerto Rican, is that pronounced Puerto Rican? Anyway, dude writes, 1 of 2. When that first Spider-Man movie came out in 2002, I have fond memories of that. I was 8. So that was my introduction to superhero movies. And even though I love Andrew Garfield and Tom Holland's performances as Spider-Man, I'll be lying if I didn't say that Tobey Maguire is my favorite out of nostalgia, I'll admit. And I know is a small possibility of him coming back to reprise the role, but if they bring him back, I know it will bring happiness to my heart watching my childhood superhero once again. Love the show. Thank you so much for that. And listen, true story. The first time I saw that Spider-Man movie, back in 2002, Rob, I had done this absolutely horrendously bad Star Wars fan film called Rise of the Trades. And we actually got to take it, and they screened it at Star Wars Celebration in Indianapolis. And I was there in Indiana for Star Wars Celebration. And a buddy of mine named Paul Enns, he was a friend of mine that I had worked with in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada, and he left the company I was with to go and work for Lucasfilm. His is a great story. He He was a huge Star Wars fan. Then he became like the senior guy at theforce.net, which, if that name sounds familiar, was like the biggest Star Wars fan site in the world for a very long time. And then when they had an opening for like the director of LucasArts position, whatever, they got my buddy Paul. And my buddy Paul went and worked for Lucasfilm. You can see him in some of the DVD extras and documentaries and stuff like that on it. And actually, my friend Paul is the one who hired Pablo Hidalgo. He's the one who actually, if I remember correct, he's the one who hired Pablo Hidalgo. Anyway, we're there in Indianapolis with him, and like the vice president of Lucasfilm. He's there hanging out with the vice president of Lucasfilm, and they come up to me and say, "Hey, you know, the studios invited us to have a private screening, like 8 of us, at a theater here in Indiana of this new Spider-Man movie coming out in a month. Do you want to come with us?" I'm like, do I want to come with you? Hell yes. So I got to go with like the vice president of Lucasfilm, my buddy Paul, and the guy who directed Blair Witch Project. I forget. He was there hanging out with us too. The guy who directed Blair Witch Project was all there. And like 8 of us hopped into these cars, and that took us to this theater, and we had the whole theater to ourselves, and they played us the first Spider-Man. And that was my first experience with that Spider-Man movie. So that was a lot of fun. But anyway, Rob, do you remember your first time watching Spider-Man? I mean, this is like just after X-Men. We were just at the beginning of this new era of comic book movies. What are your memories of it?
I think I went to a screening on the Sony lot. That's my recollection of it. And then I also saw it. In Hollywood too. But I think I went to a press screening on the Sony lot.
What are your memories of it?
Well, because it was a big, remember, you know, one of the things, I'll tell you what I remembered is that I got obsessed because they had that first trailer that came out with the World Trade Center and the spider web between the World Trade Center capturing it. So they made a one sheet, a movie poster, a pre-release poster of Spider-Man hanging off it's a great poster, hanging off a wall with the Twin Towers, with the World Trade Center reflected in his mask. And when 9/11 happened, they pulled all of that stuff from release. And I'm like, oh my God. And I was obsessed with getting that poster. I still have, it's a beautiful one sheet that I have. I've never framed it or anything, but I have, it's right over there actually. And I was obsessed by that poster. And I really liked Spider-Man a lot. I didn't love it as much as I wanted to. I loved Spider-Man 2 as much as I wanted to love it. But
still one of the best comic book movies ever. Still one of the best ever.
Although I love the first half of the first Spider-Man when Tobey Maguire first gets his powers, and it was so great. And you know, Sam Raimi did such a good job with that, and I really liked Tobey Maguire as Peter Parker. And I like that movie a lot.
All right, Rob, thank you so much for being here today, dude. I know you got things you got to rush off and do, but in the meantime, where can people follow you and your adventures online?
You can find me on Twitter at BurnettRM, find me on Instagram at Robert Meyer Burnett, and join me over on my own YouTube page, The Burnett Work, where we're having the world's first intergalactic Imagination Connoisseurs Film Festival. I have entries from around the world, and one debuts at noon today on my channel. Come check it out. A movie from Ireland called Crawl Space.
All right, Rob, thanks a lot. And I'm going to be a judge in that little festival as well.
Yes, you are.
Thanks for being here, man. And I will talk to you again later, my friend. Take care, dude.
All right, I'll see you later.
All right, guys, we still got about 20 minutes. That's the one and the only, the wonderful Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Let's keep things rolling here. The next one up comes to us from Campea Marketing Team, who says, Campea, what are you waiting for to make some merch that says, why am I freezing on that dude's name? And one of Rob saying, well, like every time he starts a sentence, love the show, keep up the good work, and I'll buy the hell out of those t-shirts. Well, thank you so much for that. Yeah, I sometimes get razzed by people because, you know, like you'll at least once a day, here we go. I'm freezing on the name of that person. But I don't feel bad about that at all because I do this show live, right? I do it live and it's 2 hours long. And like 100 times per show, we start talking about something. We start thinking of a different movie that came out 15 years ago and like the fourth named actor in it and blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, that many times, because it's live, because it's so long, because we talk about 1,000 different things in a day, I'll often come across something goes, oh, who is that? Now, listen, I guarantee you, though, you get almost anybody else, with maybe the exception of Scott Mance. You get almost anybody else that daily does 2 hours live talking about 1,000 different things that you're also just pulling off the top of your head. I guarantee you people will freeze on names more than I do. With the exception, there are a few really, really, really like deep depth knowledge people like a Scott Mance or somebody else along that lines that will do it significantly less than I do. But I do get razzed for that a lot. But it's the nature of what I do. Like if my show was pre-recorded, then you'd never hear me say, oh, what was his name again? Because I can stop, look it up, and then just record it and edit it and blah, blah, blah. But I do 2 hours per day live. It does happen, and it will continue to happen. It's been doing that ever since, back in the movie blog days, when we tried doing some live stuff back in the movie blog days, ever since then, and it will continue to happen. It will absolutely continue to happen. All right, next up. The sock writes, so instead of finishing One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, I decided to watch Basket Case and enjoy body horror and enjoy body horror. And I think I've found my new favorite guilty pleasure. Porn level acting, blood that looks like marinara sauce. This thing is a gem. I'm not sure I remember Basket Case. Which one is Basket Case? Basket Case. So there's several basket cases. There's a 2009 basket case. There's a 1982 basket case. There's a 2011 basket case. All different. I'm looking at this one right now that is clearly a horror. So I'm looking at this one that is clearly a horror right now. And is directed by Frank Henenlotter. I'm not familiar with this one. Now, this one also had sequels. This one had Basket Case 2, Basket Case 3. I'm not familiar with this one. I might have to look that one up at some point. All right, let's keep moving. Thanks for throwing that one out there, dude. All right, so that was the sock. Next one up is Frankie G, who writes, funny how Almond Joy, along with B, a Chekhov's gun, turned out to be a major plot point in The Boys. However, nothing to let your head explode over. Seriously, again, I'm not going to give anything away, but that Almond Joy bit in the last thing involving Black Noir, it was killer. Like, that was killer. I loved that. That caught me totally by surprise, and I love the way they implemented that. Russell Amador writes, hey, John, this is crazy to think that the theaters, well, Regal at this moment, is closing again, but don't blame them with studios delaying releases. Just this past week, I called to cancel Unlimited for that reason, but who would have thought they'd close? Oh, no, listen, I've been saying for weeks, ever since they moved, once they moved Black Widow, you guys remember, if you watch the show, I said theaters are going to close back down again. They have to. There's nothing to draw people in. And without the big movies to draw people into the theaters, you can't keep your doors open because it's costing you more money to be open than it is if you're closed. You're losing more money being open than you are if you're closed. You're going to lose money being closed, but you're going to lose less money. And without, again, the whole thing was Tenet was supposed to be the thing that started it off. And had it been able to start off, and had we been able to get Wonder Woman, and had we been able to get Black Widow, and had we been able to get Bond, and had we been able to get Soul, which is still technically slated to come out, but it'll move. Had all that stuff happened, it may have worked. It may have worked. But the moment they moved Black Widow, the writing was on the wall. The theaters are going to have to close back down again. And it's about survival. They're doing this so that they can increase their chances of being around later when all the movies do start getting released. Can they make it to that point? That's the question. If they do, they'll be fine. But will they get to that point? I don't know. I'm growing pessimistic, but hey, fingers still crossed. All right, the Wakandan Forever writes, best John Campea Show viewer names. Number one, The Wakandan Forever, if you do say so yourself. Number 2, 50 Shades of Geek. Number 3, The Kryptonian Eternal. Number 4, Captain Blue Pants. Number 5, The Sock. Number 6, Skywalker. Number 7, the Gerinator. Number 8, a silly goose. Number 9, motivated. Number 10, baby grandpa Pepper. John needs a cool nickname. Help him out, guys. Oh, no. I don't need any nickname. I'm good. I'm good on the nickname front. I don't need to have any of those myself, but I am always amazed quite often every day when I go through the show and we start going through the live questions, seeing some of the nicknames that people have. There's just, some of them are great. Absolutely fantastic. I'm glad you took note of them, Wakanda Forever. R. Lee writes, with the Bond movie pushed back and the possibility of theaters shutting until spring, is this finally the canary in the coal mine the Academy has been dreading? Simply put, is it time for them to pull the plug on the 2021 Oscars? Yes. Yeah. And I suspect within the next 2 weeks, I'll go a little bit further out. By the end of October, I believe we will hear that the Academy is just not going to have the 2021 ceremony. That they will change the rules to say any film that would have qualified for out of the year 2020 for the 2021 ceremony will be granted exemptions and will be allowed to qualify for the following year's Oscars. It'll make for a bit of a crowded Oscars for a 2022 ceremony. Will make for a pretty crowded Oscars, but that's fine. But yeah, absolutely, Arlie, I 100% agree with you. There's no point in having an Academy Awards if you don't have the movies there to be in the running. It is best at this point just to pull the plug on it for the year and push it off until the following year. Make it a little bit more crowded, but I think that's the best of a bad situation. All right, Hayden Lee writes, hey, John, I'm not sure if you've seen this information that came out. Go to your browser and type in Jamie Foxx won't be blue. You should be able to find the post that Jamie deleted from his Instagram. This post is a concept and shows 3 Spider-Man. Yeah, I've seen that, but I don't believe for a second that's actual concept art. Plus, I don't doubt that even if he is the exact same Electro, well, that Electro died. So if he's back, that he may have a different physical appearance. So that didn't surprise me at all. And we did talk about that on Open Mic a little bit. So yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. It doesn't necessarily mean anything though. It could mean something, but it doesn't necessarily mean anything because of the circumstances surrounding it. You know what I'm saying, Hayden? All right, thanks for sending that in, dude. Next up, Certified Lover Boy writes, there are 3 things I want for Christmas. Number 1, a PS5. Number 2, to see Wonder Woman 84. Number 3, the next NBA season starts. What do you think is more likely? Wonder Woman 84 is released or NBA season starts both at Christmas? In my opinion, it's a coin toss for both. I don't think either's going to happen. Again, like I said earlier, I still think Dune, Free Guy, Wonder Woman 84, those could still open in December. That is still 2 months away. The world changes every 2 hours, let alone every 2 days, let alone every 2 weeks, let alone in 2 months. So it's possible, but I have my doubts. I have some serious doubts. So I honestly, and I don't think the NBA season will start around Christmas time. I don't know. I'd say probably the odds of both are very slim. For now, I'm just really enjoying the NBA Finals. I mean, Miami has made a series out of it. I mean, I am not a Butler fan. Let's be clear about that. I am not a Butler fan. But what Jimmy Butler did last night in Game 3 of the NBA Finals, I will never forget. Like, that was one of the gutsiest, most blue-collar, straight-up efforts I've seen in the NBA in a long time. It was pretty magical. And I don't think they're going to win that series. I think LA may actually win out from here on out. But I tell you what, that performance Butler put in, and I'm not even a Butler fan, but that performance he put in last night was crazy. Like the type of effort I watch sports for. Doesn't matter if it's football, hockey, UFC, whatever. I watch sports to see an individual rise up and put in that kind of an effort. It was inspiring. It was inspiring. Like I said, I'm not even a fan of the guy. All right, an anonymous viewer writes, What happened to Saturday's open mic? I addressed that a little bit earlier, of course. I noticed a weird jump at the beginning, and then about halfway through watching it shut off and said content no longer available. Either way, keep up the good work. I love and appreciate everyone involved at the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for that. Again, I did explain a little bit earlier at the beginning of the live questions. Just I have yet to receive an actual explanation as to why it happened, but it's technology. Just weird shit happened. So again, I will try to get what I was able to recover of the show posted back up sometime later today. So we'll go back up online. But yeah, I'm still a little bit at a loss for it. Let's see. Brian writes, AMC should allow A-listers to use some or all of our three/week to rent. So by three/week, you mean 3 movies per week, to rent from AMC On Demand, at least till movies are regularly coming to theaters again. They get to keep collecting our money and keep memberships active, and we get to keep watching movies. No, that wouldn't work. And I'll tell you why that wouldn't work. Number one, you can't pick and choose. Right now, they've got to either activate AMC A-List or keep it deactivated right now. The best thing for them to do is to keep A-List deactivated, right? AMC A-List can make money for AMC because, not just because of the 3 movie a week limit, but because they know 90% of people, 95% of people who get A-List will use it enough times per month to make it worth their while, but will not be going to 3 movies per week. Maybe 3% of us who have AMC A-List will actually use it 3 times per week, right? And remember, every time we use A-List, AMC has to pay studios. They have to pay kickback money to the studio. So it can be expensive. That is a completely different model than the rent on demand at home, right? Because every time somebody watches a movie on the AMC streaming service, they have to kick money to the studios. And instead of only 3% of people taking advantage of that, I would say it would completely flip. I think you'd see 90% of people taking advantage of that. And if that were to happen, AMC would go broke. They would simply go broke. They'd be paying more money out in royalties to the studios than they'd be making from the A-List memberships. And remember, AMC, the theatrical experience, is a totally separate business thing than their streaming service. They're totally separate things. So no, they shouldn't do that because it would put them out of business. And in no way am I, as a consumer and a customer, entitled to that. One's one business, one is a completely different business. So it just financially, it just wouldn't work for anybody, unfortunately. I like that you're thinking outside of the box, though, Brian. I like that you're thinking outside of the box. All right. JJV writes, love the show. Thank you so much, JJV. I was wondering how much of an impact will an actor's salary have if theaters go under? I know some big name actors like The Rock and Robert Downey can ask for $20 million up front, not to mention back end deals. Oh my God. Yeah. If the theaters were to go, one of the big obvious places that's going to take the big hits are the ridiculous actor salaries. Those are going to be the first things that get chopped in half, if not more. Because studios can afford to pay the ridiculous actors fees because they know they're going to make X amount of dollars when they put their movies in theaters. The amount of money they're going to generate from those movies is going to be exponentially less if they don't have theaters and they just have home streaming and VOD and all that kind of stuff. Therefore, they have to cut how much they spend on making these movies. And the first place they're going to look are the biggest price tags, actor salaries. Some actor salaries. A lot of actors just make a reasonable amount of money, but some actors make a ridiculous amount of money. And those are going to be the first places to go. So maybe not immediately, but you would see actor salaries take a big hit. Maybe not the more recent, like the people who make like $500,000 a movie, people who make $1 million a movie or $2 million a movie. But the time that somebody gets like $25 million for doing a movie, that will be gone. That will be gone. So absolutely, that'll take a hit. All right, David Reese writes, do you think Amazon will release the Lego cuts of Blindside, Terms of Endearment, and Dances with Wolves? I'll be honest with you, David, I'm not exactly sure what it is we're talking about there. I remember I just saw something with the Blindside. They had a Lego thing of the Blindside. What was it that I was just watching where they did that? Was that in The Boys? Were they watching on The Boys? What was I just watching where they did that Blindside thing with the Lego thing? I cannot remember now off the top of my head. Eric is saying, yes, that's what it was from. So yeah, maybe it was from The Boys. Okay. It was from The Boys. So yeah, they did something like that. That's where it's from. Okay, now I see where it's the guy. First, I'm like, what are you talking about? Oh, it was a Boys reference. I get you, David. All right, David also writes, also, can we just get Carl Urban as the new Wolverine because he kills it in The Boys? He does kill it in The Boys. That doesn't mean he'd make a good Wolverine, but he's a great actor, so I'd be down for that. I'm only joking. Thank you for all the movie news content that you keep bringing us every day. Well, thank you so much for being a viewer, David. I appreciate that, and thank you for supporting the channel by sending in a tip like that. I appreciate it very much, dude. All right. Speaking of tips, an anonymous viewer tips in $49.89. Thank you so much, anonymous viewer, who tips in, hey, John, I've recently become a massive fan of this channel. Aw, thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. And it's now part of my daily routine. What's the chances of a Batman HBO Max series with Ben Affleck? Perhaps an 8-episode season with Deathstroke, although he has been used a lot recently. I think very, very low. I think very, very low. Getting Ben Affleck to come back to do what is probably going to end up being a very, very small part in the new Flash movie. I expect to see Ben Affleck actually even less than we saw Robert Downey Jr. in Spider-Man Homecoming. I don't know that. I don't know that as a fact. I'm just saying that's what I kind of think. To get him to come do an 8-episode, I don't think they'd want to do that. And I still think with Batman, they want Batman primarily to be a big theatrical thing. But what if the movie theaters aren't around? So listen, the chances are much better today than they were 2 months ago. I still don't think likely, though. I still don't think likely, but oh my God. I don't care how many times they've used Deathstroke in other mediums. I wanted to see what Ben Affleck had in mind with that Joe Manganiello Deathstroke. I wanted to see that so badly. So if they do it, sign me up. Like, sign me up today. I am on board with all the Ghibli goodness for that. But I honestly don't think the chances are very good. I don't think the chances are good. But if they do, I'll be down. I'll totally be down for that. Because from all accounts, that Ben Affleck script for his Batman movie, from all accounts I've heard from people who actually read it, said it might be the best Batman script ever written. Which I don't doubt. Ben Affleck is an Academy Award winning screenwriter. I wouldn't doubt that. Plus, he's a lifelong Batman fan. So I had no doubt. And I don't care how many other iterations use Deathstroke. I want to see Ben Affleck's Deathstroke. What his iteration of Deathstroke is. So sign me up, but no, I still think the chances are very, very low. I still think they're very low, but who knows? Nothing's impossible. All right, next up, K Major writes, I don't know what Sony has planned, and I'm not a fan of fake deaths, and the whole multiverse stuff gets too confusing for my taste. But one thing I would be okay with would be the return of Emma Stone as Gwen Stacy. She was my favorite part of those movies. She was great. And listen, I've said many times, I am not a fan of romances for the most part. I'm not a fan of romances in comic book movies. But two of the big exceptions to that are Tony and Pepper, which I've always loved that chemistry in the movies, and Andrew Garfield as Peter and Emma Stone as Gwen. I've always, that was the best part of those. That was literally one of the best part of those movies. Also got to give a shout out to Deadpool and oh gosh, what was his girlfriend's name? Morena Baccarin played her, and I can't remember the girlfriend's name, but that's another. I'll give it to that one too. I love that relationship, that chemistry. But again, I don't know. It's the more fake death stuff. She died. I'd be lying if I didn't say one of the most talented actresses of our generation being back there wouldn't intrigue me. Of course it would. But yeah, a few people throwing in that. Yeah, her name was Vanessa. The name of the character was Vanessa. Not Kingpin's Vanessa. You hurt Vanessa. Not that Vanessa, different Vanessa. All right, next up. Chase Schleich writes, and this is our last question today, guys, and then we got to wrap it up. Could having multiple Spider-Man in one film be the way they get around Jameson claiming Peter, Tom H., as Spider-Man at the end of Far From Home? I don't think so. That would be, let's put it this way, I'd be monumentally disappointed in Marvel if they went that route. That seems like a cheap cop-out to me. They created a scenario, let's see how they get out of it. I honestly don't think it's going to be a big deal. I think they're just going to say, oh, the government provided, we're going to see Nick Fury provide some stuff from the government that says, hey, this proves that he's not Spider-Man, Peter Parker are one and the same, and that'll be the end of it. But that would be kind of a cheap gimmick way of getting out of it. And I wouldn't be for that personally, Chase. Personally, I wouldn't be for it, but we'll see. You know what? I said that was the last one, but let's do one more. Elminster writes, the movie theaters in New York City were allowed to open on October 2nd. AMC is planning to open on October 9th, but with Regal closing down, do you think AMC will even open on the 9th here in not New York City, sorry, North Carolina. I was going to say they were not North Carolina, sorry. I'm assuming that's what NC is. I'm not American. Open in North Carolina on the 9th, or did I just miss out on Tenet and New Mutants? I absolutely believe, as I said earlier, that AMC theaters will have to follow suit with Regal and shut down again. Will they do it immediately? I don't know. I don't know that they'll do it immediately. So if you've got theaters supposed to open on the 9th, that's a Friday. The day after, the 8th, which is when Regal is going to shut down, they might still open and be open for a week or whatever, but ultimately they will be shut down. But I think there's a very good chance here, Minster, that they don't get their doors open at all, which kind of sucks, but, it is what it is. Hopefully, for your sake, my friend, I'm going to keep my fingers crossed that they're able to open, even if it's just for a week, so you can get out there and see a couple of those films. All right. We still have just a couple of questions left from Mark C., another one from Meister, Justin, and Jalen Pryor. But do not worry, guys. We will start off tomorrow's live questions part of the show with these handful of questions that we didn't have time to get around to today. You sent in the questions. They're going to get answered properly on the show. Just keep your eyes open for the show tomorrow. In the meantime, guys, that'll do it for us for now for this installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for being here, my friends. Thanks to all of you for making this show a part of your day. Thanks to Robert Meyer Burnett, and thank you to all of you guys, especially who sent in these live questions, because you did two things. Number one, you gave us great fun things to talk about, and number two, you supported this channel while you did it. And all of us here, thank you very much for that. Guys, remember, do the four main things. Take care of yourselves, be smart, be safe, and for the love of God, please take care of the people around you. That's the part everybody seems to forget, but please make that a priority in your life today. That'll do it for me for now, guys. Thanks so much for being here. My name is John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.